Richardson, Illinois. Here in Minneapolis.
I'm Josh Elliott alongside Amy Robach.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment of silence to remember all those lost, fallen in the line of duty.
Okay, gang. There's what's happening this week in the news. Oscar Mayer has just announced they will be bringing back the Wienermobile race at the Daytona 500. I'm going to assume Kamala Harris will probably be driving one of those vehicles. We got some strange news in the news this week. A zoo in Denmark has been asking people if they would donate their pets to the zoo. Now, that sounds all warm and fuzzy, except there's one problem. They wanted the pets donated to feed their actual attractions. I don't know. Maybe Trump does need to take over Denmark. This week, Ozzy the Bloodhound, he was certified as the dog with the largest tongue in America by the Guinness World Book of Records. Immediately following that, he's had thousands of offers of women that would like to adopt Ozzy and bring him home. As you all know, yesterday was National We Hate ICE Shut Down the Country Day. Both people stayed home from work that actually worked. Don Lemon back in the news. Don Lemon trying to be relevant again. It's been a while since he's been on TV. He hasn't really been on since he got fired from CNN. But the good news, Don Lemon is going to be back on TV. Bad news for Don Lemon is he's going to be appearing in 60 Days In. China has the hottest new toy. It is a horse that appears to be crying. This was due to a manufacturing defect when the horses were made. All the kids want them now. I now finally have a toy that captures my feeling when I'm watching CNN. I haven't seen so much crying since I watched a Portland police chief on a press conference.
This information in no way is meant to disparage or to condone or support
school shootings, and can they be stopped? And ladies and gentlemen, the answer to that question is yes, they can be stopped. It really just comes down to, do these governors, do the mayors, do these school superintendents, do they have the courage to step up and do what needs to be done in these schools? A lot of people are going to have been asking me, how can we stop them? And today, we're going to take a deep dive into that. I'll go to the video that actually brought this whole discussion on. Initially, I had just been asked to write an article on an opinion on it. And when I did a deep dive into the article, that spurred a whole lot more things coming out of it. So I'll go to the video now.
Hold on 1 second. It's trying to load.
But we have the ability if we want to stop school shootings. And I'll tell you what, guys, and I've been asked that for the last 10 years. And my answer in the past had always been no. I come from the school. If somebody wants to shoot somebody, they're going to do it no matter what you do. However, when I did this deep dive of the latest technology that's out there, you put it all together, and there's a lot of layers to this also. You can't rely just on technology. But what we can do is put a bunch of things together, use some human technology, and then we will be able to stop. And I've said on Fox and on Newsmax, we can stop about 96% of the school shootings. And this is what we're really looking to do. I am hoping that we will continue on with this, and it's going to be more than just a newscast or a podcast, that we can push this narrative across the country now and hopefully save some children's lives, because that's what needs to be done. You know, my podcasts are usually a lot of fun and off the wall, but today is really going to be a serious podcast. I think you're going to enjoy it. If you're an SRO or you're one of the people who works in the school or an administrator, I hope you stay tuned in. I will be able to and happily put anybody in contact with any of these companies. I've reached out to them since I've done the research, and they've been really, really good to me. I am very fortunate today. I will have on one of the employees to explain how one of these systems works. It's a whole lot better than having me try to explain it. I got the man himself, Todd McDermott, coming on. So without further ado, we're going to go to the video and see what started all this.
Yeah, absolutely. Congressman Brad Knott, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate all of your insight.
My pleasure. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. All right, so let's continue the discussion on the tragedies both at Brown University and Bondi Beach in Australia with John Krupinsky, Detective Sergeant of the Danbury, Connecticut Police Department. There is a lot to get to, sir. Let's start with the shooting at Brown. You are a first responder to the Newton School shooting. You are sadly familiar with situations like this. First, I would like to play you a quick clip from Brown University president defending the reason no sirens went off, even though they had a 3-siren safety system in place. Let's take a look.
Do you believe that Brown had the precautions and safety measures in place before the shooting that were appropriate and necessary?
I do. And in fact, I'm glad you mentioned the sirens. In the case of an active shooter, activating that system could have caused people to rush into Barris and Hawley. So that's not a system that we would ever use in the case of an active shooter. So,
just to follow up, it does say on the website when it was launched that it is for an active shooter.
it depends on the circumstances.
She's been, I guess the word interesting through all of her pressers, not had a lot of answers. But as someone who's familiar with school shootings, do you agree with her response there when it comes to alerting students and staff?
No, that response is embarrassing at best. There is enough technology out there, especially with AI that's out there now. In some of these systems that actually, like we have a system called Omni Alert. It will tap in, it's software that would tap into existing cameras that any campus or any business would have. AI recognizes a weapon if somebody were, like in the case of the Newtown shooting, when the suspect removed that the rifle and was walking toward the school, Omni Alert would actually recognize the rifle. Itself would make the notification to the police department, so it takes human error out, and then it would automatically, electronically lock all the doors and sound the alert, so that every student, every teacher, the police department, everyone would know what was going on. And that is what's going to save lives.
So it's AI technology, and it could literally detect if someone was bringing a gun into a school from the parking lot. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And there's more technology out there. We could probably at this time prevent about 96% of the school shootings. I'm not going to get into or give details of the ones we can't, but of the 3 types of shootings that we have, you have a student attack where a student enters a school with a gun. We have technology out there, Open Gate, Evolve Express. They use electromagnetic sensors to identify somebody walking through. And it's not a metal detector like in a traditional airport. You walk just through a door, it's set up. It will outline the weapon on where it is. And I've seen these work. And obviously I have guns and they always point it out exactly where it is. So we have the ability to stop people from coming in. The second and third type of school shootings are your Newtown, where a non-student comes in and actually shoots his way into the school.
Right.
We have technology right now. It's out there by Diamond Defense, their unidirectional ballistic assault barrier system, which is a high intensity film that's placed on existing glass that already exists there indoors. I've been at a demonstration where they shot that 10 times with an AR-15, 223 rounds. They did not have the ability to enter or penetrate the school, and the SROs inside could actually shoot back out at the bad guys. So we could keep those people out.
So the next question is, why is every single school not implementing this technology at this point? My question to you, in your experience, this shooter, Brown University, okay, so what happened? It was on a Saturday, not a typical school day. It was around noon. And I guess, again, with all of your background, all of your experience, was this a targeted attack? Obviously, this is somebody who possibly had very intimate knowledge of who is going to be in that classroom at a particular time. What do you think?
Well, I think we're pretty clear that it was a targeted attack. What we're not getting the info that's coming out there's information out there that says he did shout something when just prior to firing. If we had an idea of what he may have shouted, it may go to motive. We don't know what the motive is here yet because there's not much info being released, but it was clearly a targeted attack. There's no question about that.
Yeah, my goodness. I wish we had all day to spend with you, sir. So much valuable insight, but we do have to leave it there. Detective Sergeant John Krupinsky, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, so that's what started it all. What I thought was going to be one show on this has evolved into something else, but I think it's something that's really important to do. First, I want to talk about Columbine. You know, I covered it there. You got three types of shootings. You have your student who brings a gun in, or possibly somebody from the street, depending on the setup the school has, who comes in with a gun. Your non-student, like you had in Newtown, and we'll talk about that later. And then your sniper attack, like we had in the Ascension School. We'll cover those later. But first, I want to cover Columbine. For the old timers that are around, that were around for Columbine, that was the school shooting that changed everything in America on how police officers respond to a school shooting. Prior to that, we always waited for SWAT. I was a 19-year SWAT member. We wouldn't go until the team arrived. We had our equipment on. We had a hasty plan. We had a long-term plan, and we might be outside for 20 minutes. After Columbine, it was addressed through training and through, sadly, a bad experience, but it was determined at that time that limited numbers of officers will enter during an active shooter situation. And I know we're talking about schools here, folks, but that also applies to Fortune 500 companies, to the mom and pop gas station, if there happens to be an active shooter in there. So everything kind of changed at that point, where we now make entry with, be honest with you, I'd make entry myself if I happened to be the first guy there and it was going to be a while for somebody else to show up. That's what we signed up for. That's what we got to do. And I know there's cases, and before you start, we know about Parkland, we know about Uvalde. Look, they were embarrassments. I don't ever like to disparage another law enforcement officer, but we know what happened. Don't be that guy. And I'm going to say 99.9% of the cops in America aren't that guy. We would make the entry. But ideally, if you got 1, 2, or 3 or 4 people, you go in a diamond, you go in a T, you make your entry, and you head to where the threat is. But now there's a bunch of technologies that can help that. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very fortunate. One of the technologies that can stop students, like in the Columbine shooting, to come in is technology called Open Gate. They're not your grandmother and grandfather's metal detector. These are the latest and greatest. And instead of having me try to explain what they do, I am very fortunate to have Tom McDermott from Open Gate on this podcast with us. Tom, thank you very much. I really do appreciate you stopping your day and taking your time on a Saturday to come on here. But I'm going to turn this over, this portion of it. Tom, can you please explain how Open Gate Technologies can stop weapons from coming in, whether it be a school, a stadium, a Fortune 500 company, or any place else?
You bet. Thanks for having me, John. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure. Let me back up just a little bit. The manufacturer, we're the manufacturer, and the company's called CHEA. It's an Italian company, so we always do this. We say CHEA. The Open Gate is just one of our many models of detectors. We've been making detection technology since the 60s and securing popes and presidents since. We do all kinds of different detection capabilities. Matter of fact, the foods you ate today were likely protected by us. We've been protecting food manufacturing since the late 60s. And same with pharmaceuticals. So potentially the medications you took today were protected by us. People don't realize all that stuff, mass production, metals could end up in your foods and your pharmaceuticals. So we've been at this a long, long time. And we have traditional detectors still. The U.S. Secret Service carries our detectors. President walks through and federal protectees walk through our detectors every day, from Congress to the CIA to the FBI, you name it. We've been working with the NYPD in New York City schools for more than 25 years, and they were using our traditional detectors for many, many years until they went to the open gate. And that's a great example, actually, in New York City schools, who absolutely can prevent school shooting, because the high security checkpoint they have and the rigor that they have, it is amazing. But there's things you have to do for sure. We believe in what's called a layered approach to security. So our detectors are just one thing you can do. And our detectors do not use AI, although I'm a big tech guy and believe in AI. We don't believe it should be used here. Because again, we've been at this a long, long time. There's no artificial intelligence with our technology. We know how it works. So we can stop it. It depends what type of firearm you want to detect. If you just want to detect an AR-15, an AK-47, we can do that. You want to detect compacts and subcompacts, or even small knives, we can do that. So what we've done over the years, and we've had this capability in detectors for a long, long time, it's called discrimination, which is the ability to discern between, a water bottle, and a weapon. And, stadiums and theme parks and others have used that for years, but all still depends on what you want to be able to detect. So if you want to detect a small knife, there's no magic there. We really have to set it as a traditional metal detector. But if you're looking, for example, for a mass casualty threat, what we would consider with a gun with a magazine clip versus a single shot, then we can allow a lot of metals through. And the reason being is the signature of the metal that's used in those type of guns. There's iron in it. It's hardened steel. So that signature of that metal is very different than an alloy water bottle per se. So we can really set it to look for those kinds of signatures and only alert on those kinds of things. So therefore, backpacks, purses, all kinds of things can go through now, which in the past it was maybe keys, belt buckles, and coins could get through, and cell phones. But now we can get a lot more through. And Che has been leading that charge for many, many years. We have many, many patents, and there's no one that can touch our technology.
And Tom, when you say get through, just so the audience who's not seen any of your items before, sure. It's not like when we go to the airport and we're all standing there in line. Could you explain how they can just walk right through at a normal gate without really even visually seeing anything that's there?
Yeah, sure. So you just walk through. Again, everything depends on the setting, but stadiums, theme parks, concert venues, and now schools, sadly. Yes, you can just walk through. I mean, I can share a video with you as an example. But yeah, you just walk through. And typically at a stadium, theme park, live concert venue, we're seeing only about 1% to 2% of people being pulled aside and slowing the traffic line down. So it's really flowing just as normally walking, flying through. Really, and most people never even notice it. You go to the Indy 500, people will tell you they went through. They didn't even know detectors were there. They're just walking right through. Same at concert venues and things like that. So what we call our alarm rate or nuisance alarm rate in some cases, because we're really alerting on an innocuous item, but it happened to alert the detector saying, hey, this is something you have to mitigate. It's these days only about 1% to 2% for CHEA. Others are much, much higher. Historically, at a concert venue, something like that, with our traditional detectors, you were still only seeing about alarm rate about 8% to 10%. Again, other manufacturers much, much higher. But all depends on what you want to detect. But The alarm rate is very low. Its schools, our best schools, even looking for compacts and subcompacts, are 4 to 5% alarm rate, which is very low for kids carrying backpacks, musical instruments, athletic gear, and all kinds of stuff. So only to have to alarm and pull 5 students aside, let's say out of 100, that's pretty good. So that's what we're seeing these days.
How many people per hour could you run through this system? Nonstop as they're walking through. Roughly
Yeah.
what's the number?
Yeah, at a venue again, like a stadium, things like that, we're seeing stadiums 2,500 to 3,000 an hour through a single detector. Okay, so that's what we call throughput is very fast. Admittedly, schools are a little slower because of all the stuff they carry and just kids in compliance who want single file, want to being careful. It's about 300 students every 15 minutes, 6.5 hours, 1,200. So it's about half what you'd see at a stadium, but about 1,200 an hour through a single one. But usually a school has an entrance time of 20 minutes, a half hour. So we use different numbers, but you'd say 600 and a half hours, a good conservative number to use.
And
Some are doing much quicker than that.
It wouldn't be reasonable. And I know one of the big complaints back in the day with the old metal detectors is, kids were just waiting in line too long. They were emptying their pockets and all that. And it just took too long to get them in. But we've pretty much done away with that now. So there'd be really no reason for anyone to say, no, we don't have the ability to shuffle these kids in there in a timely manner.
That's correct. Everything though, so the detection capability, we can get them in. We need to do the math. How big's a student population? What's our entrance time? You need to get enough detectors to support that so we can get them in on time. So you have to have enough for sure, but that's a calculation we make every day with our customers and talk through that and then make sure we train them so that we can help them get the kids in time. As a matter of fact, it's about training the students as well, making sure they know. We send videos ahead of time, what they can bring, what they can't bring, how they walk through, what's expected of them. That helps a lot so that we have great compliance and it just kids get in time. And most kids, 99% of the kids, number one, they do want that protection these days. Back in the day, it was always, oh, we don't want our schools to look like prison. That's the old refrain for many, many years. That's all changed because of the problems we have now. So most support it, most want it, and most comply once they're trained because they don't want to be pulled aside. They don't want to be held up either. As a matter of fact, Milwaukee Public Schools, who I'll be training this week, just did a video about that very thing that they shared with their own students. Students did the video and talked about those old lines that they have about walking through one of our traditional metal detectors and the challenges they have. And they recently made the decision to go with weapons detection instead. It's really changing. It's going to change the environment there for sure.
Can you tell us, Tom? I find it unconscionable, like in the first portion of your presentation, where we have this technology at a theme park or a sports arena, but not to protect our children in a school.
Yeah.
Can you give me a rough idea? What would this system, if a school system tomorrow said, wow, I like this idea and I'd like to keep guns out of the school. Can you give me just a rough idea, not down to the penny, but what would that cost?
Yeah, I mean, for an average school, let's say, of 1,200 kids is kind of an average across the U.S., you'd really only need, typically, again, an entrance time of 20 minutes or a half hour, you'd only need a couple of detectors. And they're just under, $24,000 for a single one. We're not in the business of a licensing subscription because we're not a tech company. We're a security firm. So it's not that expensive. So roughly 50,000, depending on student population, up to 100,000, but that's very inexpensive. But really, I'll be honest with you, the biggest reason most schools don't do it is not the money, especially the money for the detectors. It's a staffing issue often, but more often than not, the reason they don't do it is because the fear with the community. Oh, if we do this, they're going to think we're unsafe. I've been in many, many boardrooms with board members and student administrators that talk about it. And it's often 50-50 where they'll say, oh, if we do this, the community think, oh, we're really protecting our kids. We want them safe. And half of the room is saying, oh, no, well, that's going to send the wrong message to new family members who want to come into the community. That must be an unsafe school. So those discussions and disagreements still happen today. So that really really handcuffs people in a way that really prevents them from moving forward and making a decision, is really community pushback or leadership pushback in the belief they don't need to do it. So it's not usually a budget issue. It's rarely a budget issue that prevents them, because they'll find the money. If they really believe.
That's less than what a hockey program would cost a school.
Yeah.
I mean, if I have enough money to put the kids on ice, and trust me, I'm a hockey guy. That's the first money I want to spend.
Me too.
But if I can put kids on the ice and I can protect them for less money than that costs, it should be an absolute no-brainer across the country.
Especially these days with all the capabilities you're talking about, just free-flowing and easy. And the ones that have implemented, quite honestly, Lee County Schools in Florida is a great example. The head of security there was the chief of police locally. And in the 2 years that they've implemented, it's actually almost 3 years now, 2 years they've implemented, they've actually seen a reduction in violence. And it's really helped change the culture. So it's flipped, where a lot of people, we're forcing the kids to do this, and we're accusing them of these things. It's actually flipped. 38% reduction in incidents of violence. Also, local surrounding police departments have also seen that reduction. So it's helped change the culture. But one of those reasons is because when you're screening students in the morning, you're out front, you have an opportunity to greet them every day, say hi to the kids. You're creating a culture, a welcoming culture. Depends on leadership for sure, but welcoming culture, but also human detection is really our most important thing. And that's where we've missed a lot of these shootings, the mass shootings, is because we missed the signs. And the signs were there, but we didn't do anything about it. So one of the things you can do when you're greeting the students in the morning and screening the students in the morning is notice a student that maybe head down and doesn't look right. You can pull them aside and say, hey, Tom, how you doing today? You doing okay? So those are the kinds of things we've seen for our customers that have deployed this is incredibly positive, not negative like many people think.
And that's exactly what you're saying. I mean, we both fully agree. When you find the tech guys in the companies out there fully agreeing on that, it's a layered effect, and it's not any one individual, but all these layers together that are going to keep our children safe. And at the end of the day, that's really the bottom line.
That's right.
I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, I absolutely appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on here with me today.
You bet.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, not at all. Just thanks for your time, and happy to chat anytime. My role is really education for the company. And to me, it's just important that we educate people properly about this. There's a lot of misinformation out there about it. And my role is just this, is to talk about it and answer questions for people. I'm not a sales guy. We're really not a sales organization. We're manufacturing. People come to us when they need us.
Tom, thank you very much. God bless and be safe.
You too. Take care.
All right, so we've established that we certainly have technology now that can stop the number one type of shooting, where a student brings a gun into the school. If we do that, in the first dozens of shootings, that's mostly how it had happened. We've seen a change in the last maybe 2 to 3 years where it's the non-student who brings a gun into the school, which occurred in Newtown, Connecticut, which is 6 minutes from my house.
I'm Josh Elliott alongside Amy Robach. You are seeing here a map of Connecticut. Connecticut State Police and SWAT teams are now responding to a school shooting at an elementary school in Newtown. It's roughly 2 hours to the north and east of New York City. The images you see here, children being led from Sandy Hook Elementary School. It is the district's largest school, and we can tell you that one shooter is dead.
The Newtown shooting, obviously really hit home for us. Just can't get much any more closer than that. Let's go into a little bit about how did it occur and what could we do to prevent that type of shooting in the future. That's where a non-student parked his car outside after, for those that might not be familiar, he had already killed his mother in a secondary crime scene at their house, and then went to Sandy Hook School. Shooter arrives, takes the AR out of his car, walks up. Now, Newtown did everything right there. You can't hang anybody out to dry. They had their doors locked. He wasn't able to just walk right into the school. Their doors were locked. However, he emptied at least one mag from his AR into the door, which shot out the glass, broke out the glass. He was then able to kick out the glass and make entry into the school, where unfortunately many, many, many children were shot, many killed, several teachers, some friends were shot. It's a terrible, terrible, tragic incident. I believe a total of 26 people were shot. It's one of the worst school shootings that America has had. What could we do to prevent that shooting? And now we're seeing some of this stuff where these are the problems that are existing with people coming from the outside to do these. So how can we stop that one? Well, I had to do a deep dive again and look for some more technology on what we could do. Obviously, we talk about the layered effect. Well, one of the first layers that would be out there, and I think this layer would also have helped with the Brown school shooting, is there's a company called Omni Alert. Omni Alert is a AI program that taps into your existing cameras. Now, I will say most all of the schools now have existing cameras somewhere within their facility. The newer schools have tons. If you can now tap into a resource, into something that you already have, and I understand money and budgets are tight, that you got to do what you got to do. But anytime we can use existing things to tap into, that's clearly a home run. So what Omni Alert would have done in that case, Omni Alert goes into the camera system. It picks up, through the use of technology and AI, it will pick up a gun when it sees it. So let's go back to Newtown. He gets out of the car. He's got a rifle. That would immediately have picked up on that while he's still outside. Most police responses in cities are somewhere under 3 minutes, generally, unless you're in a rural area where, you're talking about a local sheriff's department or something. But if we could have kept them out there and I believe my recollection is Newtown was on scene in approximately 3 minutes. If we could have kept them out a little longer, when Omni Alert sees a weapon, it takes the human error factor out of it. You saw in the video we played earlier, Brown University, they decided not to send out any notifications to the day I die. I'll never understand that one. However, with Omni Alert, it will notify not only every school person in there, every teacher, every administrator. I believe it can be set up to the children also, but it notifies the police. And immediately, it'll send that alert to the police. And through their camera system, they will continually track that individual. Now, you've seen a lot of the shootings. Nashville, I'll tell you what, the guys in Nashville should be highly commended. They did everything absolutely right. They were awesome. First thing you see on most of these videos in these school shootings, Nashville shows up. They have an administrator outside. Where is he? That's the first question we ask as a TAC guy. Where is he? Because we need to get there. With the Omni Alert, not only will it identify when he's outside, and you could put these cameras like in Brown, you could have put them blocks around the school. You don't necessarily have to have it just on your property. You can put it off property for somebody who's going to walk in. But it'll identify where he is continuously, which is really important to us because once they make entry, we have to go find them. And if they're not actively shooting when we get there, then it becomes a search. And that's a dangerous search for everybody. We're going to get to that shooter, and we're going to do what we have to do to stop him from hurting children. But it's a lot easier when we're getting continuous updates. He's in the cafeteria. He's in the library. He's moved over to a hallway. Getting that type of updated information right to my headset when we get in there is absolutely huge and saves lives. So the Omni alert system on the outside of Newtown would have been awesome to have. I think we would have got a quick alert as he was approaching the school. The next layer, company called Diamond Defense. Diamond Defense is the leader in actually stopping rounds from coming into a school, or in this case, stopping the rounds from shattering that door and allowing him to make entry. I want to cover this technology exactly. Diamond Defense produces, and it is called the Unidirectional Ballistic Assault Barrier System. What does this do in layman's terms? Okay, in layman's terms, we talked about doors were locked. He shot through the glass, kicked out the glass, and made entry. Let me tell you what this ballistic assault barrier system does. And the unidirectional is really, really important part of their system. It's a complete system that attaches to and goes on current doors and windows. So we don't have to go to the school. We don't have to rip out glass. We don't have to change windows. Everything that they have there currently, this system will attach itself to. This system displaces the energy and the rounds do not go through. How do I know this? After the newscast you saw on Newsmax, they reached out to me. They're actually right over the line over in New York. They invited me to a demonstration that they were putting on for several companies. I got to go there. I watched them fire 12 rounds in a 2x2 window with the system on there. It did not, what impressed me, I've shot bulletproof glass before. I've seen it. Usually you get a back big dimple, some smaller, some bigger. I ran my hand down the back of the window. I got no glass shreds. No, dude, it was perfectly flat. 12 rounds with a 223 AR, nothing went in. That was impressive in itself for me. The second thing they did was they brought a young kid over there who much more younger in youth than me and stronger with an aluminum baseball bat. After they shot this tight group of 12 rounds, this kid hit that window until his arms were tired more than 25 times, and they could not break the window out. It would not come out. And when they say unidirectional, if you're an SRO, go to your school administrators, go to your chiefs, go to your mayors. What they then did was turned the window around so you would be on the inside of the door, inside the school. They then fired 2 rounds with no deflection right into a target. So the SROs from the inside of the school would be able to neutralize anyone who's at that door trying to get in after they shot at it, hit it, kicked it, and they would be completely safe. They don't have to worry about trying to hide around a corner and fire. And they could walk right up to the door, shoot the suspect through the door, neutralize the party, and case closed. So if we combined those two, that is going to stop the Newtown type shooting where somebody comes up. And I know many, many schools. I volunteer my time to sit on one school safety committee because I had attended that school all them years of the nuns yelling at me, and I'm finally giving back to them. But these types of schools that they have their doors locked, that's going to certainly help. Now, we had talked when I was on with Tom, we talked about a layered effect, and we need this layered effect. One of the things and now since that show, I've been getting a lot of calls from a lot of SROs. And guys, I'm retired now. I got plenty of time. I don't mind donating my time if I can help some kids. So I've gone to a bunch of schools. I got a couple more coming up as we speak. And I'll look over and see what they got and make some recommendations of what we can do. But one of the things that's an absolute must, it's a simple add-on too. If your school doesn't have one, most all main entrances empty into either a lobby type setting or a nice long hall. But you do need a man trap. And when I say a man trap, it has to be like when you go to that ATM, you have the outer door that's locked. You get either buzzed in or carded in, go into, do your business. And then I like the longer the better, but at least 12, 15 feet. And the second door, which is locked, that you would allow to be let in or buzzed in. And why do we need the man trap and why do we need both doors locked? Well, it's pretty simple. If you have Tom, so if open gate is in there with you and somebody comes through the first door and a weapon is detected, obviously we want that second door to be locked. We don't want them to go through and say, okay, hey, that guy's got a gun. He's inside the school and now he pulls out his gun and now, World War III breaks out. So if we can contain him to that man trap, that's obviously what we want to do. He would also then have to, the person who tried to shoot their way in or whatever would also have to go through a couple of layers. And if they had the diamond defense system on there, he's never going to make it into that school. And that's really our goal here, is to keep shooters and guns and suspects out of the school where they can be either handled by the local officers arriving, or again, when we say multi-layer, if you don't have an SRO in every school in your city, or you don't have an armed security guard in your school, in your city, you're 50% behind the eight ball. And I agree 1,000% what Tom had said earlier about having those kids in there where they can come in and see the SRO in the morning. That's a great spot to be stationed for him. Exactly what Tom was saying. The kid with his head down, he gets to look, he gets to make contact. And then anyone who may look out of the ordinary, he's going to be right there. If you're going to have a shooting at that type of an incident, it's probably going to be at that front door. They have to get in the building to do it. Now, are there some other issues and obstacles that have to be taken care of? Yes, there are companies and technologies. Every school system has got numerous doors. Obviously, you need alarms with cameras on every door. You don't want somebody coming through the front door and then open up the side door for his buddy to come in with 2 or 3 weapons. But that's something that we can deal with, and we know the technology is clearly there. Almost all of these new schools that are coming out now, they all have cameras on every door and entrance. So that should take care of that problem. You couple that with Omni Alert, and again, they still have to get to the school. That can give you almost a 1-block radius of coverage and a heads up. It's really nice for that SRO in that school to hear that he gets the alert, there's somebody in the parking lot coming out with a gun, rather than waiting until they fire the first couple of rounds through the doors. So these are extremely important things that that we can do and make happen. Thirdly, and the last type of shooting that we've experienced, and this one is relatively new. This is the Ascension School. The Ascension School shooting. Yeah, you can go to the video.
Illinois. Here in Minneapolis, school children scramble for safety during the latest mass shooting in America.
This time, it happened at a church where Catholic school students were celebrating Mass.
The sheer cruelty and cowardice of firing into a church full of children is absolutely incomprehensible.
Mass of the new school year. The FBI is investigating the attack as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. 2 children, 8 and 10 years old, are dead tonight. 17 people were wounded, most of them students, all expected to survive, however, thankfully. Officials say the shooter died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. It happened this morning on the south end of Minneapolis at Annunciation Catholic Church.
That was a new type of school shooting for us. We hadn't really seen a sniper type attack at a school yet. So again, we got to go back to the drawing board. There's no entry to the school. There's no diamond formations. Now we have to deal with a sniper. The sad part is you get Diamond Defense over there, and if it was on those windows, I did call the company and ask them if it would work on church type windows, and they said it absolutely would. He could have fired those rounds, but not one round would have ever made it into the school. I would like to see, every time we have one of these mass shootings, we see all of the politicians from both sides of the aisle all over TV talking about it. I would like to see, when it comes down to it, when we start building new schools, that some of these technologies have to be made mandatory. Sadly, it's probably the only way we're ever going to see some of these schools get it. Places like Brown University, they had $8 billion. There's really no excuse not to have that when they could have afforded everything that we've all talked about today. But again, we have three types of school shootings. Student bringing a gun in, a student or a non-student shooting or breaking their way into the school, and lastly, the Ascension sniper attack. All of these shootings, the technology is there to prevent it. And we're not talking about crazy pricing here for these things. So in God's name, I just don't know why we are not implementing this technology across America in every school setting that's out there, because we can be saving these children. It is possible now. And again, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, I was a guy saying, if somebody wants to go in and do something, we don't have the ability to stop them. But that is no longer true. We currently have the ability through these technologies, and there's many other layers out there too. We can automatically lock every door in a school. There's, I'm only going in and covering the big three here today that I think would probably take care of, and I say about 96% of the school shootings. There are some variables that we can't cover. Luckily, they haven't happened, and no, I won't mention those. We're not here to give anybody ideas, but all of the technology that we've used could cover all of the school shootings that we currently have had. And when I say schools, guys, too, this is not limited to just schools. If you're a CEO out there, or you're running a Fortune 500 company, or you're running any type of business where you're concerned about your employees, or depending on who you are and how much money you have, this technology can be deployed also at someone's home. There are tons of stuff out there to keep people safe. I hope in the future we'll start doing that. Coming up, now that we've gone through all the serious stuff, we'll have a little more fun. I'm going to bring in Jack Garcia. Let me give you a little bit of Jack's career. Jack, I did get to work with personally. He was one of the guys during my tenure that I got to work with. Jack, one of the premier undercovers in the United States. Jack worked with us and for us on numerous occasions. Jack Garcia had, at one time when he would show up, Jack would show up and he would lay out 5, 6, or 7 phones. Now, folks, we're old. I'm going back to the days when we had flip phones. Jack would have rubber bands with information on the phones to say, okay, case, suspect, and UC name, because he had so many UC cases going on at once. When the phone rang, he wasn't sure which one it was. So he would look and see where his UC name was and that he was there. Again, Jack, he also infiltrated the mob, did a pretty decent sized case there. I'll let Jack talk about a little bit about that with you. But Jack is not the type of guy to jump on here. I have to drag it out of him. But let me tell you, Jack is the real deal. He's got some great stories, and we've done a bunch of shows together also. I always enjoy when I'm on with Jack, and he's the real deal. Jack's been featured on 60 Minutes and several other shows that you'll see him on. You can look him up on the internet. He's all over it. He's all over it more than I am, that's for sure. But without ado, I'll bring in my friend now, Jack Garcia. How you doing?
Hey, Johnny, how you doing?
We're having a great day down here in New Jersey. New Jersey stuff we don't have at home, Jack. We actually can get White Castle burgers here, so I had to make a stop on the way.
Oh, of course. You got to get those murder burgers,
No,
Those are the best, the belly bombers.
3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. Well, that's what they tell me they're open, and I'm not out that late. But
Anyway, that was an excellent, by the way, presentation you did. I mean, such an amazing product. And I'm telling you, you're a natural, John. I mean, it's something that needs to be said, and hopefully people are listening out there and are willing to provide this product, because it really works. I mean, I know I've never seen you this excited about a product and before, and you have 40 years of law enforcement service, and if you give that the stamp of approval, that's good enough for me.
Jack, and again, it was great today having Tom. Now I'm in contact since all of these shows, and for a guy like him to take a Saturday out of his schedule and say, no, I'd really like to come on there, and I'd really like to show you what our product. That was awesome for me. I can explain these things, but not like the guys from the companies can, obviously. I mean, it was very special. And again, Jack, you have a child in college right now, correct?
Yeah, actually, even more closer to home. My daughter went to Newtown High School, because I used to live in Newtown, and we were there when that tragic event occurred, when evil visited Newtown. And I remember the day clearly. Even my daughter has known some of the kids whose siblings were killed on that day. And it was such it destroyed our community. And there were so many people that stepped up to the plate. Father Bob at St. Rose Church was one of them. And but we pulled together, and it was just a horrible, horrible experience. I could remember just these kids and the fear in their eyes and their faces, and it's something that you don't want to live and relive. And that's why I really believe, when I know you and I have had a previous conversation about this product, this is something, it should be done, period. I mean, we need to protect our kids to be in a safe environment, and because evil does visit there, and from time to time, and we can't have that. We can't have that. But I'm grateful that you invited me here, John, and it's always good to see you. A little bit of background that John was part of this elite team at the Danbury Police Department. I mean, these guys were all heavyweights, and you could call them at 3:00 in the morning. Hey, we need a surveillance on this. They're out there. They'll do whatever they did, and they had tremendous ideas. They had amazing sources, and it was great to have worked in a partnership with them. We actually went a couple of times to New York City, John, if you remember, to deal with that famous chef who was involved in dealing with coke, and we want getting him as well. But you guys would do these car stops that would yield all this narcotics, and the best part is you're able to flip these guys to move to the next step. And that's one of the things that I always find amazing in the career of law enforcement. And I used to work in the Union County Prosecutor's Office in New Jersey, in Elizabeth, so I'm familiar with. But police officers, wherever they're at, they could just pull over somebody on a minor traffic stop, and that person could be none other than Joanne Chesimard. I mean, here they could be put in harm's way. Where we in the FBI, when we do our stop, we know everything about the individual. We know where he goes, where he lives, what he looks like, what his house. We do all of that. So it's a little more safer than being on the middle of the road over in 284 or on 84 West, and you're by yourself at night at 3:00 in the morning, pull someone over, and it turns out to be that these people are looking to do harm, and you're by your lone self. So my respect has always been with the police department and the great work that they do, and it really it's good to have them out there.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you for sharing the Newtown story. I would never give up your locations where you lived. So I'm glad that you brought that story out. And I can confirm that, yes, Jack did live there. And yes, that was about, what did we say, 4.5 minutes from my house. If you had an issue there, my guys would have responded to Jack's house. Jack, all of the things that we've done, I mean, a lot of it has been some fun. We got to work on the Air Perico case a little bit with Jack, and I miss Steve and all the boys and going to the mansion, and those were just great days that you can't really relive. I feel sorry for these new guys. These guys that are getting hired today, forget it. They will never know what this job was. But the job that we got to do back in the 80s and 90s, I mean, let's face it, that was the creme de la creme, really, of policing and police work. And you think of some of the cases that we did and some of the fun we had. You could never do any of those things now.
Yeah, Johnny, it's great you say that, because law enforcement has changed. And I tell you, my big beef with the FBI is, and I guess with law enforcement in general, is that they are now building these beautiful offices and buildings. And there, I was in the FBI, and we worked in it was kind of like a bullpen atmosphere where desks were together. You come in, the guys are breaking your balls right from the beginning. What happened the night before, the phone rings, who's calling. Everybody knew everyone. Everybody was willing to participate. Now we have these pods. And in these pods, you don't know where anybody is. You can't see. You usually walk to that someone's place. A great guy that we know, Steve. You go to his pod, and he's got his jacket hanging over the chair, but there's no Steve for hours. Where before, where you going? Where you heading? Hey, you need help? Can I come with you? That whole thing has changed. We were closer before in law enforcement. I think nowadays we need to go back to that bullpen atmosphere. We got to get away from, we used to have a steno pool that was comprised of all these young kids who were looking for their first jobs, and they would do all the paperwork for us and typing. You know who does the typing now for your reports? We have to. Think about it. I'm not a typist. I don't know how to type. And here we are spending all of this time in the office when we should be out there on the streets putting bad guys away. And that's kind of what law enforcement has changed in a lot of ways. But yes, the FBI has become more transparent. Yes, the FBI is now involved in these partnerships, which I'm very glad to hear that we share all our information. I think that's a positive step in law enforcement, and one that I like. I worked in task force with you guys. I worked in task force with the NYPD. We had 13 police officers assigned to the narcotic drug task force in Queens. And I tell you what, we got along marvelously. It was, every day was a holiday. Every day was a great time. We put bad guys away. We seized a lot of money, seized a lot of dope, and we all got along. There was never any pressure. But once you moved up to the next level of being a boss, that's where it starts getting cloudy. That's when it starts having issues. But among the boots on the ground, there's no better relationship than a cop, an agent. We all get along. We signed up to do the same thing.
And Jack, and that was the difference too, back in those days, like us working with, we all had the personal relationships. They were all out there. Hey, I need something in the FBI. Let me call my boy Jack. Hey, it's a bomb. Let me call Sammy Di Pasquale and get him and Brian down here. I got to say one thing. I got to give a big shout out to Sammy. Sammy, I was a cop 45 years. Bro, no one ever got me 114 hours overtime in a week. But Sammy did that on that one case. That's the most money I have ever made in this job in a week. I didn't go home for a week, but Sammy, you made me some money. But again, back in those days, Jack, like Steve and Ray Tarici, we all could pick up the phone. Mick, I always picked up the phone, Mick, anytime I was going to Miami, because you know it was going to be a good time when you were done. That was after they towed our car away and we had to go get it and come back. But, the personal relationships, I think that was missing. That definitely was missing for quite a few years. It is back now. I will say that. We had the old FBI, we had the dark years, and now we're back into a new era. And I like that we're going in the direction where you and I used to be. Because, look, I wasn't a boss in those days. If you needed something, I was never going to say no to you. Maybe I didn't tell everybody, but Jack got what Jack needed. Same thing with you. If I called you, I knew that I was going to get. If we had to pick up the phone and call Mick and say, hey, can you drive by this place in Miami? He would get out of his bed, get in his car and go do it. These are the things that we did in those days. And for a while, we kind of got away from that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, look, Johnny, a personal thing that happened with me. I sold my house in Connecticut. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember this one. It's okay. I'm retired now. You can say it.
Right. And I, all of a sudden, like 5 months later, I get a call and they say, hey, listen, we were cleaning the top of your closet and we found the box of personal items. And I said, you got to be kidding me. Well, what's in there? He says, oh, you got a copy of handcuff. You got this, you got that. I'm saying, I said, well, what can
you... this and to that, let me just say, we're very important.
Yes. And then the this and the that, yes. So suddenly, as she goes, the lady goes, well, I could ship it to you, but I wasn't comfortable with that. So what do? Picked up the phone. I said, John, I need a favor. He goes, what do you need? He says, they found this. He says, no problem. I'll go pick it up and I'll ship it to you our way. Don't worry about it. Sure enough, 3 days later, I have it. See, that's something you develop that I think it's a brotherhood. It's something that no matter where you are at, the guys you work with, you call, and they're always there for you. It's not like tit for tat, like you helped me because I helped you. It's just something that we do natural, And it's such a beautiful feeling to know that you could call throughout the country and get people to help. But then you also switch over, John. I wanted to get your opinion on this since you were a boss. And by the way, you were a very well-respected boss. And, you were an unusual boss, so to speak. You were more...
Just because you become a boss shouldn't change you.
Right, but it does to a lot of people.
Well, it does. And look, when you become a boss, especially on the sergeant level, you have to make two choices in life. How can I rephrase this here? Some people will go in the direction to just kiss ass of the administration to get to another level. And some people will die hard, protect their employees to the end of the earth. And it was an easy decision for me. You got to remember, my dad was on a job 38 years. My brother was a boss for 40. If I went home on a Sunday dinner and said I wrote somebody up, trust me, I wouldn't have been eating Sunday dinner at that family table. You think Blue Bloods is tough? No, we didn't talk nice at our family table. If you fucked up like that, my father would have hummed me out the door and my brother would have been slamming it. Yeah. I do attribute a lot of my career to my dad and to my brother. They always kept me on the straight and narrow, but it was an easy transition for me. I didn't really change anything. I just cut out a layer that I had to deal with. I no longer had, and look, let's face facts. You couldn't find a better boss than I had either with Jimmy Fisher.
Oh, fantastic guy.
Jimmy was exactly like me. He would look over every once in a while and say, "You're kidding me, right? What did you do?" But it never left Jimmy's desk.
You're right. And you know what? You were the type of guy, as well as Jimmy, and this is the type of boss that guys on the street want to hear. What do you need? What can I do to help you? How do we make this case easier for you? Let me fight the battles with management. I'm here
I just
for you.
never told management. They figured it out later. I take the heat afterwards. That's a whole lot easier.
But exactly, but it happens. And, one of the things now, I think we're also going, the pendulum is also swinging the other way too, Johnny, because I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Is now whenever you have a press conference and you have all the agencies there, all the alphabet agencies, ATF, DEA, FBI, Secret Service, blah, 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 everybody needs to say 2 words during the press conference. I don't want to hear that. Everybody who stands up there and gives their name and what they go and they do, all they're doing is they're looking for a job. That's all they're doing. Just have one person. I'll never forget Jim Kallstrom, who was the ADIG of the FBI. He would be the only person to get out there and say, even though it was a multitask operation, he said, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. This is what we're going to do. Have a nice day. And walk off. Now you got to hear every single person, and you have to throw in an interpreter for sign language in there as well. So it's a 5-hour press conference when in reality you should just have the lead agency, whomever that may be the front person, not politicians like we've seen in the past, not United States attorneys, not every alphabet agency there is. And so what I mean by swinging over, we're going a little too much with the transparency, even affected with Kash Patel, our new FBI director. Here's a guy who insists right from the get-go he's got to go on camera. He's got to wear his raid jacket. Well, we know who you are, for crying out loud. You don't need your raid jacket up there because you weren't part of the arrest. And then the whole thing is he tells everything that's going on. And it doesn't turn out sometimes to be right. Gather the information. That's all we do in law enforcement. We gather the facts, and then once we get all the facts, we compile them, we pass them on to the United States Attorney's Office for either declination of the case or prosecution of the case. Don't be giving out stuff that will turn out to be wrong because you lose credibility. And we can't afford losing credibility in law enforcement.
No, I would agree with you. Credibility's got to be there. What I do like, and Jack, we talked about our days, and we're going to go back and talk about a couple of the cases we did, and they were some fun times. But on a serious note, back what we had was great. Then for quite a while we lost it when they kind of lost focus. What I do like now, and again, I've really only been retired 3 days now fully. I hadn't been to work in quite some time, but actually working with the new and improved FBI, absolutely awesome. I'll say, I'm not going to mention agents by name because they're still working, but we had 2 agents show up at our office, not unlike you wouldn't do or Ray wouldn't do, walked in and put down some information and said, hey, we need some help on this, guys. Okay, what do you got? And Jack, shockingly, and this is one of the things we've gotten away from, but now we're getting back to also is I'd never seen either one of these guys, and they were right out of the Bridgeport office. I didn't know them.
Wow.
I didn't know if they were great guys, not great. I had no clue. But, again, you know how our unit works. Hey, whatever you need, bro, we'll make it happen. And they came in and said, we have 2 children from Venezuela being trafficked in your city. We don't know where they are, but we know they're here. Okay, let's see what we can do. One thing from their SAC that really impressed me, he looked at me square in the eye and said, look, I want to be clear. Our new bosses have told us we are to work with locals. We believe you guys can help. I don't know what your experiences have been in the past, but we're here to help. Anything you need, you ask. And that in of itself, Jack, did mean a lot to me. And I said, geez, these guys seem sincere. Could have been bullshit, but who knows? We'll find out. And
Right.
that night, one of my detectives, he, within 5 hours, he's like, calls me. We all left at 7 o'clock after looking around. 9 o'clock, he calls up and says, Sarge, I got the girls. I know which house they're in. I was like, damn, I know you guys are good, but I didn't think we were going to find them tonight. And I said, one thing I love, Jack, and if you take care of your guys, they'll take care of you. I said, you're authorized. Come on in and start typing. If you got to stay there all night, I don't care what it costs me to pay you. It's not my money, folks. And he stayed there all night typing. So we had a search warrant ready to go the next day. And again, the FBI shows up. Here we are in Connecticut, thanks to our illustrious politicians. Even though the girls were trafficked from Venezuela, the targets of the investigation were all non-citizens. I could not bring ICE in. Crazy. I could only use the FBI, and then the FBI later would have to deal with ICE because we can't. That's just that. These are the bullshit laws that they've come up with in Hartford. This is a clear case where we have children being trafficked. We clearly needed to have them there, but we had to play by the rules. The FBI shows up with a whole bunch of people, which was awesome. They also brought some female agents, which was awesome because we don't have any in our unit. And again, that same boss comes to me and says, whatever you want us to do tonight. So I said, hey, look, we're going to make the entry. I said, obviously, I'm taking my guys to make the entry, but, you got any SWAT guys? They had one SWAT guy there. Hey, jump in the stack, bro. And I said, you guys are welcome to come right in after us. I'm not going to tell you to, Jack, you know what we do with guys we don't trust. Okay, you're on the perimeter. You got the back door.
Exactly.
If they were from public affairs, they would have been 2 blocks holding up traffic. But, these guys were all great guys. And, I said, no, just come in with us. Just let us make the entrance. And again, I didn't hear I'm from the FBI. And I've done some raids with feds, different agencies that said, here's what we're going to do, whether I agreed it or not. And, you had to go along with it. These guys are awesome. What do you want to do? And so we all make the entry. My guys go in and we secure the rooms. We secure both girls, get everybody locked up. And again, their boss says, what can we help you with? What do you want us to do? Now, one of the areas that we're a little weaker on is getting phones and getting phone dumps and getting the search warrants done. And then getting it to I might not see that phone for 10 months in a state level. I said, hey, could you guys do the phones for us? And they're like, sure. I might have looked over my glasses at me when I handed him like 11 phones and iPads, but it had all of the business on there. And that investigation, we went further with it. But again, that was kind of the new and improved FBI. These 2 guys, I couldn't say enough. They probably should have been born and worked with us in the 80s and 90s, Jack, because that's the kind of guys they were.
Interesting. But now you attribute that, you think, with the new administration?
Yes.
Really?
And they didn't know. Look, most everybody out there knows Dan Bongino is a friend of mine. They had absolutely no clue. Zero clue. They didn't know who I was. And after the raid, I picked up the phone and I did call Dan and I said, Dan, I just want to let you know that these are what these guys said. These are how they acted. And I know what you're trying to do here. And you should be very, very proud of the representatives that we have in the Bridgeport office here. And I think it's important when somebody does the right thing. Everybody wants to bitch and moan when somebody sucks. But,
absolutely.
When somebody does the right thing.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad to hear that because that's kind of the relationship that we had in the joint NYPD FBI drug task force and you guys. It was we
you guys
shared
were just
everything.
Like family to us. You guys, go back when John was there and Bridge. You guys had desks in our office. And you could just, you were no different. You were a unit member to me. You weren't an FBI agent or another guy. You were a friend and a unit member to me.
Yeah, and, it really was so much fun. Those were the days that
we had
you look
fun.
back and say, wow,
how did we live?
Yeah. You work hard and you play hard, and you always did the right thing. You always wanted to, to make sure that everybody made it home safely. That was important. We looked after each other because it's a dangerous world that we're living in, and
And that was just the drive home.
Yeah, exactly. And but I love the fact that Danbury PD, you guys were like legends in Danbury, because everybody other departments didn't really have the reputation that your unit had. I mean, your unit was kick ass and take names. You guys were serious.
What I loved in those days, Jack, is when we would get calls by the other agencies to help them do a case outside of our city, only because they needed the assistance. Whether it been because all of our guys have been in that unit for so. I'm one. I don't agree with this bullshit like some of these latest and greatest. Jack, maybe someday when we got time, you'll sit down and tell me what they teach at that FBI National Academy. Because every time one of these chiefs comes home, they want to move guys all over the units and move them all around. I'm from the old school where you put a guy in your unit, he makes the most important thing in any unit like ours is having sources of information. A guy that develops 50 sources of information, and then you say, oh, geez, next week you're going to the youth bureau. I just don't buy into that bullshit like some administrators do. Where we kept all our guys there. All of our guys in our unit, when you were there, had maybe 10 years in. So moving surveillances we could do in our sleep. And it was just great when we would get a call from another agency. Most of the time, Fed agencies. Same thing with our SWAT team in them days. I mean, you go back to the 80s, we were the first team around to have MP5s and then a couple of MP5 SDs. And the Secret Service were using us all the time. We made trips for them. Hey, can you help us out secure in this location? I was always very proud of the role and of the reputation that Danbury PD had.
Yeah, I tell you what, to me, working with the NYPD like on a regular basis, I think it really it made the work environment so much better. The fact that you're working in a task force and you're able to share and do, that's very important. And like you mentioned, with the informants are concerned, that's the key to success in working criminal cases. You're as good as your information on the street. If you don't have sources, you're not going to really be quite effective.
You can be the greatest cop in the world, but if you don't have the ability to go out and have a source, make an intro, make a UC by, make a CI by, you're done.
Right. And then you mentioned the movement of personnel. The NYPD was horrible at that. I remember we had the finest NYPD detectives. These were first graders, second graders, which the way the NYPD works, you become a detective, you're third grade. If you do amazing things, you move to second, and then you go to first grade, which is very rare. First grade, I think, gets paid what a captain gets paid. So it's a very prestigious place to be at first grade. But what happens is all of a sudden there was a scandal with DEA task force. So what does the police commissioner do? He decides to say, well, you guys have been in this unit for such a long time, we're going to move you. And you're going to now have to find a house to live in, meaning you have to find a station where to go. Now, how ridiculous is that? Because you're losing a detective who has so many sources, who knows the system with the Bureau, is as honest as the day is long. And now all of a sudden, you're really pointing the finger at the guy because somebody else messed up. Well, you surgically remove that person, you get rid of it. You don't get rid of everybody, and you don't rotate because you're saying, well, because one guy is dirty because he was there too long, therefore there are other people who are dirty. I'll prevent that. That I've always had a problem. And we lost some good guys on that move, and it really bothered me because I never understood why. And I don't know if they do that in your department, but anytime there's a scandal or something, they tend to want to rotate the workers out, and it doesn't make sense.
I got to say, we've been pretty lucky in SID. I'm one of the very few guys like Louis Ramos is not going to leave SID until the six of us have to pick Louis up because he can't come up and down the stairs and can't make it to that handicap spot and put him in the car and send him home for his last time. But I don't blame him. We often talk about career choices and career mistakes. Look, I'm one of the only guys that ever left that unit. Guys pretty much stay in that unit till the day they die or retire, because to get in that unit, you're handpicked. Look, we don't put guys in there. It's not going to be, hey, a 2-year. Oh, don't worry, he's going to be here for 2 years. We put guys in there. As a boss, I was demanding as far as got to get the job done. Got to get the job done. And these guys are great. Look, it's the easiest unit in the world to be a boss in, because these guys would come in, like one of the guys, before he takes his girls to school in the morning, he would be out there at 6:30 in the morning checking the locations. He'd come in, and I'm not talking about his cases. He came in on one of my cases. He comes in, Johnny, here's a plate number. Yeah, your car was there this morning. It was out there. Because I'm not really a 6:30 kind of guy, Jack. But Johnny Marullo back in the day when we did the Jamaicans, Johnny Marullo drove, and when I talk to his wife now and his son, and Betsy talks about, we got out of church and Johnny said, hey, we got to take a ride. She's like, I didn't know we were going to the Bronx. Johnny drove all the way to the Bronx to see if the target vehicle was at that location, and sure as hell it was. So it was pretty easy to supervise guys like that. And why would you ever want to move somebody out of the unit? The only way I would ever have said somebody's got to leave is if they weren't upholding their end of the bargain. But that's not something I experienced. When I got promoted to sergeant, again, these are these fucked up kind of rules. When I get promoted to sergeant, the administration we had at the time was way different than what we currently have. And he's like, oh, you got to go back to patrol. I'm like, hey, Jack, if you remember, that was during Air Perico. We had just seized $1.4 million on that stop. I'm like, what do you mean I got to go back to patrol? And even the mayor, I got to say, he said at the time, they seized a lot of money there. They could easily have just said, all right, we're going to have another sergeant in there, a lieutenant. They sent me back to patrol. And I'll be honest with you, I struggled when I went home that night. Do I take this job or do I not? At the time, Jimmy Fisher was getting ready to leave. So I said, you know what, shit, Jimmy's going to leave. I'll take the job and go back as a boss. Well, it took me 14 years of wasting away in patrol before I got back to the unit as a boss. I'm not ever going to be sure I made the right decision at the time. I will say it was an absolute pleasure to be the boss in there. It's great when I could make the decisions and do all the things I wanted to do, but was told no. No, that word no longer existed. When I went back to the boys, I said, okay, let's pretend it's 1980, fellas. We're going to pick up right from where we left. And, the last 3 years of my career with those guys, no one could ever ask for more. We kept breaking the record of largest seizures over and over. And, times change too, Jack. Our day, if you got a quarter key of heroin, guys from 12 states were texting you. Now everything is fentanyl, and we were seizing 2,000 bags here. One of the guys did a case where we seized kilos of fentanyl. I mean, just an absolute pleasure to have guys working their ass off like that for you. It was very, very easy to be a boss. But
Johnny, you missed the job?
I'll tell you what, I am really enjoying this retirement life. It's nice jumping on a plane, going to Florida. I'm going to go to Brazil coming up. Retirement is great. Do I miss doing the surveillances? Like one of the biggest things in the office we would have, it was a lot different in the later years now, but, we'd make a buy from somebody that we didn't know. And, one of those deals where CI would have somebody come up, and then we would all blast back to our desks, and we're hitting social media, clear, everything to try to find who's going to find out this guy's identity first. Do I miss stuff like that? Yeah. Do I miss doing those search warrants? Jack, I mean, I'm one of the bosses that didn't want to be standing outside. I loved when I had Louis with me. We'd stack up, and Louis is always the point guy, and I'd always be on his 6 at number 2. And do I miss that portion of the job? If you don't miss that stuff, you probably never were a good cop, because you should miss it. I know you don't. You ain't gonna tell me that you're not still missing when you're there, saying, "Man, I could do this UC job, and I know I could do this guy." We all will always miss that. I mean,
we do. We miss it. I mean, listen, to me, I do miss the job. I mean, I miss that adrenaline rush that people that worked undercover like yourself only understand. I mean, there is no better feeling to be next to the guy you're talking to in this identity that you've created, and you look in their eyes, or either you toast a drink and you look in the eye and your hand is not shaking, and you know that you're saying to yourself, this guy is believing all the bullshit I'm telling him. And by the time this is over, we're going to lock your ass up. I mean, that feeling, to me, it's irreplaceable.
And when you walked out of that bar or that house with that dope in your hand, it was like winning the freaking lottery. Like, you just couldn't wait to get out and show the boys.
Exactly.
Hey,
it's a great feeling that it's something that, unless you've experienced it, you really don't know. But undercovers like us, Johnny, I used to teach also in the undercover school in the FBI, just like you taught. I helped you out in your undercover school at Denver. I remember one of the things is they think that we can become undercovers, like police officers, because they watch television or they see something. No, this is something you're born with. If you're not a natural bullshitter, if you're not a person who is comfortable around being people that are not like you and don't act like you, you have no business being an undercover. This is nothing you learn in a class. We are born undercovers. We just fine tune our skill set.
And now, we have a pretty good crew that we go around. We got Joe Pistone, Donnie Brasco, we got Alex Alonso, Bob Starkman. And now, Jack, as we retire and we become the old guys, and you remember on cases when it was new or something that I wasn't quite sure of. And this is what I love about Jack. It could be 11 o'clock at night and we're going in somewhere, and I would make the call and say, Jack, what do you think we should do on this? And Jack, after retirement, would pick up the phone and answer. We all have a responsibility, because we are 0.1% of policing. And we have a responsibility to pass along, but exactly what you said. Not everybody can be an undercover. There are people you can't take and make a UC ever.
Exactly.
They're never going to be one.
Yeah,
what we can do is help those young kids fine tune, and you don't want to be in a situation without having the knowledge of how to get out of it. And those situations. So I enjoy, now I feel I'm on the next level. I'd still come out of retirement if one of them 3-letter agency calls me for a job. But, it's our responsibility now to keep these other guys alive. But while we're talking about UCs, one of the cases, and a dear friend of both of ours, Mikey Suits, Mikey Grimm, Mikey, if you're watching this, Mikey, God bless, and we hope that you're doing well and feeling better. But if you could just touch a little bit, I mean, that is a classic case with Mikey that a lot of people don't know. People know, the big cases, and people know the drug cases. But Mikey, what he did down on Wall Street, and then he dragged you into it. If you want to touch on that case, I'd love to honor my brother Mikey here.
Yeah, well, we're talking about Michael Grimm. Michael Grimm wound up becoming from Staten Island, became a congressman. And people have two different opinions. This is opinion from my own experience with Mikey Grimm, and I'm assuming it'll be likewise for John. But Michael was a great undercover. I mean, Michael had this case on Wall Street that actually Jim Comey, I believe, prosecuted. It was called Wood Nickel. And you can look that up. And he had this giant operation with stockbrokers and all of that. And he came to me and he said, listen, I'm done with my undercover case. I want to get involved in some of the stuff you're doing. So I brought him into the mob case. I was infiltrating the Gambino crime family. And he says, look, I know you're starting out, but I can make you look good. You are a part owner of a strip club. So I'm going to bring a whole bunch of guys over and spend a lot of money in the strip club. And this will make it look good that you're an earner, that you bring in guys and you control the. So sure enough, Michael pulls in on a bus. Had all these guys come in, dropped all kinds of money on strippers, drinking and partying. And what did it do? It enhanced my position as an undercover with the captain of the Gambino crime family. It's looking at, wow, this guy, he's a hustler. He connected. So Michael was good with that. And then, of course, we couldn't really commingle the cases, so we kind of went a separate way. But he also helped me tremendously in the Hollywood Police Department corruption case that I worked in for many years. And I was playing the role of a gangster from New York. He was one of my soldiers, and Michael went there. Amazing. He did Atlantic City with the politicians in Atlantic City. He was paying them off for bid rigging and getting some private properties down for building in Atlantic City. So Michael was the creme de la creme. He got bored with the Bureau. He wanted to go out on his own, establish a business. He did. He created a fast food restaurant, did a lot of delivery. And then what happened was he decides to run and he wins to Staten Island. So he turned out to be the only Republican in the state of New York. So he was open game. They went after him every which way. And they said that he was paying, in New York City, mind you, paying off the books illegal aliens. Now, you go to any place in New York City and you go in that back kitchen, I would love to see how many people are legit, okay? And in New York, the way it works is that in the past, they would send you a summons for hiring that. Not with him. They send them a pair of iron bracelets. They locked him up. He wound up doing time. And he came out. They really went after him big time. And none of his...
That was one of the earlier political prosecutions.
Yes. They went after Michael. And he was like he said, hey, listen, I'll pay you. Yeah, I offered to, these guys were making money on tips. I didn't pay them. I paid them a minor wages, but they were hustling, making huge money on this restaurant that I had. Well, then Michael went on his own, and Michael used to love being, playing polo. Now, that's something you and I, Johnny, would never do.
Yeah, I don't think I could reach all the way down to hit that ball. I
don't think there's a horse big enough for me, okay, unless I get a Clydesdale. So anyway, so he's playing a game of polo. Supposedly he went for a shot. His head flew and it hit the net. And he's been in a wheelchair undergoing all treatment. And I pray for him a lot. I think of him. As far as with the Bureau is concerned, people always ask me, to me, he was a great undercover. He played his role the way he was. If he was told, you play my second guy, he was the second guy. And Johnny, you know this sometimes. Sometimes as an undercover, when you have multiple undercovers, a lot of people kind of move into your territory of what your role is instead of staying in their roles. If my role is to be a bodyguard, that's what I am. I don't speak. I don't let people know opinion. Michael was just that. He played his role. I've been around with guys who interrupt, who will say things like, that's not your role, dude. You shut the hell up. I'm playing the role. When you play the role, I'll carry your suitcase. But that's not what we have, because you don't want to deviate for your undercover role. So Michael was very good at what he did. He paid off some politicians in Atlantic City, paid off some 30 police officers in Hollywood. And the guy, he's, like I said, is Michael, you're listening. We respect you. You went on to work with Newsmax, your place, Johnny.
And that's when here's a funny Michael Grimm story. And this is, you'll hear us say things like, "Hey, I got to be a good earner," and some of these things just never leave the vocabulary. But I get there, and I had done like at least 3 or 4 shows with Michael and Wake Up America, him and Sarah Williamson, and after like the 4th or 5th show, Mike's like, "Hey, what did you do in the police department?" I said, I was in the narcotics unit. I was a sergeant there. I did some UC work. And he's like, "Oh, you did UC work?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, I never knew that I knew that he was a congressman, but I didn't know Michael Grimm was ever knew he was an FBI agent, because that's not what they ever talked about on the show. And Mike's like, "I was a UC in the FBI." So now, like, when you got 2 guys, and Jack can attest to this, if you get 2 guys who say they were UCs, each guy's looking at the other guy saying, "Is he the real deal?" And
exactly.
so I had to open up and say, Jack Garcia? He goes, "How do you know Jack?" I said, "Well, me and Big Jack go back." He goes, "Oh, when I say Big Jack, then he knew I was." And we talked a little bit. And then Mike said, "Okay, I'll see you next week." I was not out of the parking garage. Jack called me up. "Hey, you've been checked on." Because that's what UCs do.
That's what we do. We are a fraternity, and membership is limited. We really are a fraternity. We know, and we test each other, because, as you know, Johnny, having worked all kinds of undercover work, there's a lot of guys out there who call themselves undercover who might have done a cameo role that an informant did all the work, and all of a sudden they got
ghosted
I was an
somebody and
undercover.
got 8 beers.
Yeah, exactly. So unless you're meeting with that bad guy face to face, and you're dealing with him, I would question that. But if it makes people happy, they all want to be part of it. But as you know too, and I'm surprised, Johnny, because I know with your extensive undercover work, I know in the bureau it goes against you. Like, for instance, with me, it's not looked as traditional investigative experience. All my career I did was undercover work. 24 out of my 26 years was solely dedicated to undercover work. So I was never looked up. I remember at times when I would fly somewhere for an audition, so to speak, and there'll be some brand spanking new agent. You could tell he was from, God knows, from the Comey era. And he's wearing his Dockers and his little soccer shirt, badge on the side. And he goes, "Yeah, I want you to play this role. And I wrote out what you're going to say." I said, "What? You mean you did a script?" He goes, "Yeah." And he said, "Let me see that freaking script." And he goes, "Hey, dude, how you?" I go, "Dude, I don't talk like that. Throw the shit out of you." I said to the guy, "Listen, I'm not going to work for you because, first of all, you don't know shit from Shinola. That's number one. Number two, I forgot more than you know." I said, I am not an informant. I am an FBI agent undercover. I have the same credentials you have. So don't treat me as I am a source." And Johnny, that happens, as you know, sometimes. They forget that we carry the badge as well.
And Jack, that's why I stress it in the school. I love when we have the school, if you have bosses there, I always stress to them, in a case, it's all about the UC. Yes, you're still a boss, and yes, at the end of the day, but it's really about what that guy says. If the UC says this is a no-go, I'm not going in there, then it's a no-go. You don't order him to go in there. If the UC says, "I don't like this meet location," that's up to him. Some bosses are great. Some bosses are smart enough to know, hey, that's good to go. But like you say, the new suits right out of the class, they don't always get that. And that's something that they can maybe learn through the years of being a boss, but then first couple of years can be tough. And it can be tough on the agents doing the cases,
Right. But as you also know too, Johnny, is that I always looked at it that somebody will press, "Well, you got to do this. You got to tell them that it's drug proceeds. You got to tell them this in order to meet the violation." And, as an undercover, we look at body language. We look at reaction of the person. Maybe this is not the time to say that, because if you say that, you're going to get compromised. That's going to smell. You're not going to pass the smell test. My theory has always been that way. Listen, if I can't do it today, that's why God invented tomorrow. All right?
Tom Mack's famous line, if they're selling drugs today, they'll be selling drugs tomorrow.
Exactly.
But that's true. I mean, that's the one good thing about dope cases. If it's a robbery case or something else, hey, either you caught the guy when he did it, or, you know, you got to wait till the next time. Dope cases are great because they don't stop.
Yeah, you're right, 100% on that. And you know what? I like I said, though, if someone called me, I'm out 20 years now, Johnny. 20 years.
Seems
I
like
retired
yesterday. We were doing
2006.
work together.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. But you know what, though? Somebody called me up and said, you want to do a UC? Where do you want me? What time? And I know I'll be calling you.
Ring.
I was going to call you, Johnny. We got a job. We got something to do tonight. You know?
And Jack, me, Jimmy, and Mark could be there in 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Now, speaking of Louis, what's Louis going to do? Is he ever going to retire? Or is he going to? They're going to bury him over there, or what?
He's not going to retire.
What a gentleman he is, isn't he?
Just again, again, when you get to work with people like that you truly love, I mean, it made the job so easy.
You had great guys. I mean, once in a while in our squad, because we were a bunch of guys and gals, there's a couple of guys sneak in there that have no business being there, but they quickly wanted to leave because they realized that they were this square peg in the round hole, you know. But your unit, man, you guys were.
No, we were very fortunate, and it was like that case we did, the Air Perico case, and when our now friends, those agents, first showed up and they came in our office with the 4 pictures of the guys. Each one of us had already arrested them numerous times. And they're like, yeah, they were probably the only guys that didn't know who the hell we were. They're like, yeah, we've been investigating this. And Fish was great. Fish is like, how many years? And then you can see everybody stopping and looking at each other. Well, a couple of years. Why didn't you come to us? And there was, a little bit of the cutting in the air. Like, well, do you know these guys? And that's why, again, learning to be a boss under guys like Fisher and Tom Mack was absolutely awesome, because I watched Fisher take charge of that interview, and Fisher's like, oh, we might know him. And during that case, after about 20 minutes, when Ray said, look, guys, all right, let's all put the cards on the table here. How about we go talk about this over a couple of beers? And when he said that, we all looked at him and said, all right, these are our guys. First of all, they showed up in sneakers and jeans. We like that, sneakers and jeans. and then we find out later these are SWAT guys also. And that was probably one of our biggest cases with the FBI. But
Ray was an amazing agent.
That's a guy I miss. Him and Steve was great. That whole crew on that case.
Steve was a character. He was like a fish out of water, because he's from down south with that accent of his. Remember the peanut stories?
Oh yeah, yes. I mean, they were just that case. That was the classic of 2 groups of guys feeling each other out. But if you're that good in that group and you're that good in that group, it shouldn't take you more than 4 minutes to realize these guys are our kind of guys. And we all realized that quickly. Quick part of that story, when it was going to be raid takedown day, each guy in the unit, and I was only a detective then, Fish was a boss, we each had one target house in Danbury. And for the people that aren't familiar with Air Perico, during the 9/11 shutdown of the airports and planes, when they grounded all the planes and took the luggage off, all over the country in airports there was extra baggage, and those baggage were loaded with kilos of cocaine. It was it was a pretty impressive case that they did, and it was an international case. And what are the chances of this? The Kennedy Airport baggage handlers all lived in Danbury. I mean, that's just crazy. Yeah. And we, each detective the night before was assigned one suspect, and we had to stay with them until 6 a.m. because the FBI can't kick a door before 6 a.m. So we got to wait till 6 a.m. I didn't like that rule, Jack. I still don't like that rule. We kick the door when it's opportune. But I get my guy who happened to be over in Eden Drive, and, you know, we're all talking back and forth all day long as you're following your guy. And we were lean because we had, 10 guys in the unit that we borrowed a couple, but we got 4 targets. And I'll say this now. No one ever knew this, but I lost my guy in traffic. And, Jack, that was the worst feeling of my career. The pit in my stomach. Luckily, it was only 8 o'clock at night. But I looked for this guy everywhere. And once I couldn't relocate him, I went back to Eden Drive, and he showed back up at midnight. I was the happiest guy in the world when I saw him park that car, and I looked through the binoculars, and that's him walking in his front door. But that was a horrible, horrible feeling to know, holy shit, I lost, and I can't be the only guy to do this. Now, later, other guys would start to say, well, I lost my guy for a half hour.
Yeah. Surveillance in New York City, it's impossible. You catch a red light, you have people running lights. Yep. It's a tough environment for that. I mean, working any kind of surveillance out there, many times, you lose the guy, but you'll find them again. That was one of the things that I loved about the mob. Whenever you work in the mob, the guys will say, look, where'd he go? He says, don't worry about it. We'll either go to his mother's house, we'll go to his kumada's house, we'll go to his wife's house, we'll go to the social club, we'll find them. Sure enough, they found them. But when you're dealing with dopers, that's a whole different animal. You don't know where they're going to go or what they're up to either,
But, doing those big cases, and I always loved interagent. Some people didn't like them. I particularly liked interagency cases.
Me too.
I love, back in the days of Duncan Stewart, when Duncan said, we're going to put our own task force together. I'm like, sure, Dunky. A week later, he calls me, hey, you got to come down to this meeting in Stanford. I go down. Stanford's there. Norwalk's there. Waterbury's there. Duncan's like, who you got? Like, we had a pool in less than a week. The Duncan Stewart Task Force, and to this day, I still call it the Duncan Stewart Task Force. When Dunky put that together, we went from a pool of, hey, I can call my buddy, to overnight we had like 24 undercovers of all ethnicities, varieties available to us. Dunky was really the one who got all of that going way back in the 80s and 90s. I always enjoyed working with other agencies and other people because, out of these things came friendships like you and I have, and many other guys out there that, if it weren't for this job, a lot of guys do this job for 20 years and they're going 20 years in one day. I was lucky to do it for 45, and I could have done it for another 100. If it was warm up here, like Florida, I'd still be at work tomorrow. No question about it. But, I've had
you can have. I tell you what, you can have Florida. I'm moving. I live in Florida now.
Jack, anytime you want to trade houses, you just let me know.
I do want to move back.
You come on up here anytime.
Johnny, I'm telling you, it's a great place to vacation, but to live here, it's a whole different animal. Okay, I do miss the 4 seasons. I love the winter.
You wouldn't have missed last Wednesday shoveling freaking. We had 20 inches of snow.
You know what? I've been in Newtown when that happens, but I do listen. As long as you got power, as long as you got food,
that's a big.
As long as you got electricity and water.
Don't forget the beer. Don't forget the beer.
Of course, that goes without saying.
We could deal without food if we had to.
No, I don't know about that. I think food for me precedes the beer.
Jack, it was great to talk to you today, man.
Likewise, John.
It's been a little while. Hopefully, we'll do it again sometime.
I love the studio, by the way. Looks excellent.
This is, this is a great studio here. This is, this is the Blue Podcast. Mike Burke, Brothers Before Others, puts this on here. It's a 300-mile round trip for me to get down here, Jack. That's why I come down. I drive down about every 6 weeks or so and do this here. But their setup here, to be quite honest, is no different than going to like a Newsmax or a Fox. The studio here is really good. Big shout out to Dawn Conklin in the back, all those videos you see and stuff. And Dawn is normally there's 5 people in here running this thing. Today, Dawn is in this studio running all of these things, bringing you in, bringing you out, throwing the videos on. She has done all of this by herself. So big round of applause for Dawn here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You know, and some of these things that I go to, Jack, you know, we're used to working with, you know, some tier 1 companies, but I find it, you know, like here, it's really not much difference than going to a good studio. So.
Now, what town are you in? Are you in a county?
I'm in Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania.
Oh, New Jersey, Phillipsburg, New Jersey.
But there's a bridge over here. If I go over to that bridge, then I'm in Pennsylvania.
Yep,
right?
you can walk to Eastern PA from here.
I can.
Oh my God! I used to live in a town called Tabernacle, which is by Medford, when I was working in Philadelphia, and South Jersey was pretty good, you know. And so I'm not familiar with Phillipsburg. I think it is. Isn't that on the sign of the Jersey Turnpike?
No, it's in Warren County on the PA border.
There's farms and shit here, Jack. You ain't going to the mall here, Jack.
Well, listen,
we
you
used
look
to have
good.
a mall. It did close down though.
You look good. I like the coins behind you.
Oh no, this now downstairs they have a full police bar. It's like similar to like going to Kelly's at Police Week. Doors up on the walls. It's just a legit straight up cop bar. They do a lot of fundraisers here and stuff.
Nice.
Mike Burke and his guys are really, really good about taking care of people.
Very
Jack,
impressive.
I just forgot one story, and let's give them the short version. But tell them about when you had to go to the doctor.
Oh, which time?
When you were wired up with that little box there, checking your heart.
Oh, yes, real quick. Excuse me about that. Yeah, well, first of all, they got me in the union when I was in the mob. I was with Local 305. So we had benefits. We had eye, dental, retirement, actually better benefits than in the Bureau. So one day the captain goes, okay, everybody, you got union benefits. We're going to go see a doctor. Just make sure everybody's okay. Off we go to the doctor, not like where you have to wait. We literally walk right into the door. Doctor sees that, puts me on an EKG along with everybody else. My heart is going through my chest, right? And he says, don't you feel that? And I go, no. He goes, you got atrial fibrillation. I said, your pulse rate is like 200 something. I said, your heart rate, this is bad, what you have. I said, well, how come I don't feel anything? He says, look, probably you're living with its control. I'm going to put on what they call a Holter monitor, which has the little suction cups of an EKG and a box. And he goes, and in that box, I want you to record anytime you do. If you walk, exercise, lift weights, you read, you lay down, you watch TV, do your day. Now, I'm with the captain. Now, the captain's getting a little hungry, so he says, look, Jackie, well, you talk to the doctor. I'm going to go. I'll meet you at the diner. I said, all right. He leaves. I'm worried, like, oh, man, I got atrial fibrillation. What am I going to do here? But I knew it was in the hands of a good doctor. Sure enough, I go, puts the Holter monitor on me. I go to the diner. I'm sitting around with a bunch of mob guys talking about scores and this and that. The next thing you know, the old man gets up, the captain, and he says, you know, guys, we got a rat among us. And he's been taping everything we say. So everybody's looking around like, who is this rat? I killed this son of a bitch. Where is he? So then he walks by me and he rips my shirt, and there are all the suction cups. So I'm sitting there going, humana, humana, humana. Meanwhile, my blood pressure was already to the roof. Now it doubled, right? So then he goes, it's you, Jackie boy. You're the one who's recording this. What are these? I go, I couldn't talk. I was like, like humana, humana, humana. And he goes, and he looked around and I saw the faces and I was telling myself, I got to grab a knife and I'm just going to take out the first guy that comes at me, you know? And sure enough, he starts to laugh. He goes, he's got a bad ticker. The doctor put this on about him. It's all right. Now, I'm sitting there the next day. I got to go see the doctor. I give him the Holter monitor and I give him the notes, right? And he puts the Holter monitor in the computer, and all you see is like all this activity and then a flat line right at the time that he says I was the rat. A true story, man. I tell you what, that scared me to death. And I had to go to a doctor and have it done. Bottom line, I still have the atrial fibrillation. I would have never known I had AFib had it not been for the mob putting me in local 305. So we went and got the heart test. So
and the best part about that was you didn't have to wait. You had no copays. The mob gave you better insurance than the FBI did, Jack.
I know.
You still got your union card. You might want to go to that doctor.
I'm thinking of switching over to local 305. At the end, we took down the president and everything else. But I tell you what, though, it's a scary feeling knowing that you help. And then the other thing was the secretness, because I told the case agent, you can't tell anybody this, because if you tell the bosses, you know what they're going to do.
Fit for duty. There's going to be some super
exactly
motherfucker that's going to say, fit for duty, Jack.
Right. And then after doing with all of that, I had to worry about with my wife, because once I told her, she goes, you're done. You can't work. You're going to die. And I calmed it down. I said, look, I'm under this great doctor's care that they know. This mob guy who he met when he was in prison, their doctor. And I said, let me at least deal with them in that. So when I finished the case at the end, years later, they had the case agent go to a doctor in Danbury. And he said, look, Jack Garcia was formerly Jack Falcone. He was undercover. But when he was undercover, he had heart issues, and he underwent all of these contrast electrocardiogram, all these tests. He says, I don't need you to duplicate it. Just take his paperwork from then, that is him, and have him be your patient now. So can you imagine that doctor sitting there and he's going like, wait a minute, you're coming to me with this guy, and he was Jack Falcone, the mob, Gambinos, but turned out to be, he was a great doctor, cardiologist.
Hey, you're still here.
And that's it. I'm still here.
And that's after a lot of lunches and dinners with us, Jack. So.
Yes, and that was some good times.
Jack, thank you again. It was great going over some of the old memories, and it was great to see you. I appreciate you taking time out of your day
Johnny,
to come out here and be on the show today. So, Jack, thank you very much, man. Love you, brother. Hopefully,
Love
I'll
you
see
too,
you
brother.
Soon. Next time I come down, no more Mar-a-Lago for you. You Mar-a-Lago, or you could have had lunch with me. Jack chose Mar-a-Lago. Can you imagine that, guys? But next time I come down, we're getting together. That's for sure.
All right, Johnny. All the best to you.
God bless.
Take care. Bye.
That's going to bring us to the end of our show, folks. However, just remember, today's show was sponsored by the Wounded Blue. Randy Sutton and the Wounded Blue, which I sit on the board. You'll see got us nice new shirts here. The Wounded Blue is there for every officer in America. We can provide you with any assistance that you may need. If you're having a tough time, and look, guys, I understand. You don't want to go to your EAP programs because somebody's going to pick up the phone. It's going to go to the chief. It's going to go to the mayor. I can tell you this. At the Wounded Blue, if you call us for assistance, and we'll get you to the right area. We have peer support people. We do have some doctors that we can hook you up with. They do the light therapy with the lights going. There's a ton of things that we can help you with. If you need placement into a program, we can get you to a program. The one thing I can absolutely guarantee you, no one will ever know that you came to us for assistance. And I think my reputation speaks for itself. I don't care what chief, what sheriff, what mayor, anywhere. Call me up and ask me if you were in our program or getting assistance. And I think you know my response, what it would be to them. So please, if you need some assistance, it's thewoundedblue.org. Thewoundedblue.org. It's run by Randy Sutton. Randy Sutton was the most featured cops on the show Cops. He did about 80 some odd episodes. He's from Las Vegas Metro, 4 shootings. He's the real deal. There's no paper tigers in the Wounded Blue. They're all real deal guys, and we are here to help. I think it's very important You know, we see too many guys take their own lives. It's become an epidemic in some sorts. We will get you the assistance that you need. So please don't ever hesitate to call. Again, this segment was sponsored by the Wounded Blue, thewoundedblue.org. God bless you. God bless America. I love you all.